Okay, everybody go on mute.
Thanks.
Everybody mute. Start anytime you want. Just give me a thumbs up. So good morning, everybody. My name is Sally Wantz, and I welcome you to our Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Actually, you are with me and Jeff and Catherine and Darlene and Reverend Landale and Ray, and maybe some others, each of us from the comfort of our own home. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. Jennifer is across from me, and we've decided to be with you virtually, and yet it feels rather close to me as I look around on the computer and see these lovely faces. So I've asked everyone who comes and joins us on this Zoom to make sure you put yourself on the mute part so we don't have a lot of back talk. And if this recording works for us today, it just may be the new normal for Poof until it's safe to be together in our fellowship again. So let's begin, shall we? As we've done for so many years, and Jeff is ready to play, we're going to have Jeff play our Spirit of Life. It's number 123 in our hymnal. If you know the words and you feel like you want to sing them out loud, if nobody's around and nobody cares, go for it. Just hit mute so we don't all have to hear you, okay? So Spirit of Life is how we start our service. Jeff, when you are ready, play on. Very lovely, my friend. Thank you very, very much. So just so you know, we've established a dedicated phone line if you have a special need or request of our Pastoral Care Committee. The number is 541-590-2656. Now, if no one answers, leave a message and someone will call you back. All confidential, of course. And I'm getting the nod from Catherine that that is correct, so that's great. In other news, the board will be meeting on April 14th via Zoom, which is this medium that we're using, and everyone is invited to attend. You just need to send us an email and let you know you want to be a part of it, and we can send you a link so you can be a part of it. Anytime you want to write to us, it's florence.unitarian@gmail.com. Now, we all know that Reverend Ruth Miller has left us to be with her family on the other side of the world, it seems like. And the program committee is looking to fill her Sundays with meaningful guests to keep our souls alive. If you know someone who would like to be a guest at our virtual pulpit, send us an email. Give us the information and they will follow through. And then Patty Godwin, she's been a little busy, let me just say. She's putting together what we are calling mini peace circles. So this is going to be a group of 4 or 5 people who will meet virtually every week or every 2 weeks just to keep in touch and have some stimulating conversation as we're in our homes and not getting out as much as we'd like to. So if you like this format today, and especially if you have suggestions for next week and beyond, do let us know, okay? Now let's move forward for our official words of welcome. These come from Amanda Schuber, and it's titled Words of Welcome for a Difficult Time. Whether you're watching this because worshiping with us is part of your routine, or whether you feel like our country has been stopped in its tracks and it's impossible to return to normalcy, on this morning, we gather to proclaim that we belong to one another and that others belong to us. Broken hearts are welcome here. Anxious spirits are welcome here. Minds worrying faster than a racing engine, uncertain what to think. Stubborn egos that sometimes trip us up, cementing us to opinions. fragile, shell-shocked souls. Say it with me, out loud or quietly. They are welcome here. Yours, mine, and everyone else's. Not because this community will fix it through easy solutions or the right way forward. No, as a liberal religious congregation, we have something far more fragile and far more powerful than that. Our need to be together, our need to reconnect to the life-giving source that moves within us and among us, and our need to make one another a little bit braver and wiser before returning to the service of life. Blessed be. I've got Jennifer here, she's my best partner, and she's going to help us light the chalice. And this comes from Cynthia Landrum, and it's titled Superheroes. Thank you, Jennifer. Mindful that with great power comes great responsibility. We light this chalice in the hope that in brightest day, in bleakest night, our faith will flame on. Thank you. Darlene's going to share joys and concerns. Darlene, I know if you haven't had a chance to read it, we don't have our shells and our water, but I have some agate stones I would love to lay by this chalice if anybody wants to share a joy or a concern. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Sally. In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrows with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, and together we offer comfort. We also share our joys with one another, knowing too that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. We make space each week for joys and concerns, knowing the life and experience of every person matters, and together we send energy outward and inward as needed. For those on Zoom, if you wish to share, please unmute your mic and let us know what is in your heart or on your mind. Sally has a special collection of agates, and she'll place one for you around the chalice. If you want us to share your joy or concern next week, send us an email and we'll read it aloud on your behalf. Send it to florenceunitarian@gmail.com. Let me do that again too, florence.unitarian@gmail.com. Finally, I ask, do we have anyone that wants to share a joy or concern at this point?
Yes, I've actually found some joy in reconnecting with friends. I'm kind of making it a point to call somebody around the country every day and just check in with them and see how they're doing. And so far, and this is another joy, everybody's healthy. So I've been doing that all week, connecting with friends all over the place, some of whom I haven't talked to in 6 months, but it's kind of made me do it. So that's great.
Yes, I have a concern and a joy. My partner Heather's daughter, her 30-year-old daughter, was hospitalized in Portland with respiratory symptoms and needed help with breathing. However, she is doing better and had the COVID-19 test and it came out negative. So we're grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for the doctors and nurses and all those who helped her. Thank you.
So finally, I asked Sally to place a final agate for all those unspoken joys and concerns that rest deep within us. Blessed be.
Thank you, Darlene. And thank you to those who shared. So Catherine, I believe we have a responsive reading. I think you're going to have to read the whole thing. Unless we all want to unmute and read along with you if you printed it out. What do you think? And Catherine, you have to unmute.
Yes, I'm unmuted. I think I'll read the whole thing this time.
Okay, thank you.
Next time I will send it to everyone in
Okay,
advance. So, okay, this is reading 651 from Norman Cousins. Norman Cousins was an American author, professor, and world peace advocate. A quote I like from him especially is, "Life is an adventure in forgiveness." And today the reading is, "The body is humankind." I am a single cell in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. I'm a single cell. My needs are individual, but they are not unique. I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings. I will work for human unity and human peace, for a moral order in harmony with the order of the universe. Together, we share the quest for a society of the whole equal to our needs. A society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, and in which justice has a life of its own. We are single cells in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. Thank you.
that's beautiful, Catherine. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So before we do the formal introduction of Reverend Stephen Landale, Jeff has some wonderful music to share with us. I invite us to close our eyes, relax, and allow this music to just take us to a different dimension. What do you think, Jeff?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. So for those who don't know Reverend Stephen Landale, he's just a terrific guy. Comes from the Eugene Cottage Grove era, is that right? More Cottage Grove or?
Eugene.
Eugene. And instead of having him drive all the way over this morning so we could tape record this at the fellowship, we invited him to be a part of this proof experiment where we can do the whole service by virtual Zoom. So I welcome you here, Stephen, and your friend Heather. You're both welcome to our fellowship right here, right now. And I'm going to step away and listen to you from the next chair over. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be with you again. The wonderful congregation and a wonderful group of individuals who kind of keep Florence going. I really respect you, and I'm glad to be with you. I appreciate first of all, many of you may know I've been working as a hospice chaplain for 8 years out of Eugene and Corvallis. Prior to that, I served as a full-time Unitarian Universalist minister for 11 years and have done some consulting ministry as well. The reading that was shared earlier, "The body is humankind," was, I thought, just powerful. Perfect words for these days. Although now we're not just 4 billion cells, we're one of 6.7 billion cells. We are interconnected. Now more than ever, perhaps, we need to see ourselves as tiny parts of one body. Perhaps like ants in an ant colony doing what's right for the group. This has been an overwhelming time. Do you remember when the 24-hour news cycle was exhausting? Now it seems like there's a 2-hour news cycle. A massive federal government relief package is coming our way, right? Stocks soar. No, wait a minute, it's on hold. Yes, now they're agreed. Oh, no, wait a minute. One member of the House decided that everyone needs to fly back or drive back and vote in person. In Oregon, last week, are we moving towards a lockdown? Stay-at-home order? What does that look like? Now that it's legal, will the police actually pull me over? Do I have to be ready to explain why I'm in my car going someplace? On Monday, a question I faced, as many others did, I believe, is should we go shopping now, just as the order is taking place, or should we just go shopping later? And these are the questions of those fairly well off, not those hit by the pandemic in significant ways, who have much harder questions as well. Talk about those later. But for all of us, it's stressful when simply your routines are thrown off, when your very livelihood may be at stake, or your life or the life of one you love. And it's stressful and hard when one of the things that replenishes you, meeting in person on Sunday morning with your friends, at fellowship or church or temple, when we can't do that either. So I greatly appreciate the effort your lay leaders are making to have this happen, and I believe there's always a silver lining, and some good things may come out of this as well. Now, during this challenging time, I found that it can be helpful to have some diversions. And I'll share with you one of mine, one that I turned my nose up at for my entire life until now: cat videos. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Heather, it's my partner. I'm gonna try to get this where it can be seen. So we have here an ordinary kitchen, ordinary cat on the ground, and some tin foil on the counter. Apparently, this is a useful means of keeping cats off of counters. So let's see how this works. There's the cat looking up. Whoa, quite a jump. So, I have no idea if you're laughing or rolling your eyes or what your response was, but the simple fact is I simply can't do that when I come to preach with you in person. So we've tried it out now, and you can give your feedback on that. But we need our diversions now and then. And, you know, laughter is good for us. It's good for us, our souls, our spirits, and it's even good for us medically. So today I'll be exploring what I'm calling the beloved and broken community. The beloved community, as you may know, was a phrase used by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I think it's reasonable to assume it's kind of a secular phrasing for something he knew from his Christian tradition as the kingdom of God. The central question for us today, I think, is how can a community be beloved when we're all feeling broken up? When we're not even meeting in person with one another, in your case, when your regular pastor is away, when you question whether it's even safe to get together with another friend, anybody outside your household, and go for a walk. Those are hard times. How can we care for one another when we're all social distancing? Or at any time, how can we care for one another when we're feeling broken, or when we're in grief, or losing some of our independence? How do we care for one another amidst all of this brokenness in our individual lives, in our families, and in the world? Now, I shared a story in worship services before, I don't believe with you, but our current situation has me seeing it an entirely new way. You may have heard this story. So hell is like being stuck. It's the difference between hell and heaven. Hell is being stuck in front of a large, delicious bowl of soup forever, but not being able to reach it, only being able to eat with a very, very long spoon, one so long that you can't get it back to your mouth. Lovely prop, this is what we do, we're working from home. So I'm gonna try to drink this. This is what's hell. And it's not soup, it's water, don't worry, I'm not ruining Heather's nice rug here. And so I try to get this is hell. I can't do it. But heaven is the exact same situation, same soup, same very long spoon, but where we feed one another.
Nice.
I'll be nice. This is heaven, in theory, and there it is. That's how that works. And let's try it the other way. We're members of the same household. That's a parable I've heard several times and told myself, but has an entirely new literal meaning in this age of social distancing. The difference between heaven and hell is, at this time especially, is how much we feed one another and learn to feed one another at a distance. Now, for the practical problems of distance, creativity is needed, like, for instance, this service. And being forced to change our ways can lead to new habits that will likely help us going forward when we can meet in person. Spiritual communities across the country are likely learning new ways to serve their shut-in members because we're all shut in now. That will help us serve a smaller minority of those who are shut in later. And learning to use technology as a means of reinforcing or even establishing community could help your congregation and many others successfully address a key challenge that's facing Unitarian Universalism and every single mainline Protestant denomination: attracting younger members. The nones, those who find their spirituality online or with friends or in nature but aren't gathering in person in communities. Today's crisis may be the opportunity for faith communities to figure out how to transform themselves into something that might actually survive and thrive in the decades ahead. Now, I mentioned I was a hospice chaplain. A question I often ask of my hospice patients and families is this: what has gotten you through hard times in the past? And I invite you to think of that now. What has gotten you through hard times in the past, and what has gotten your congregation through hard times in the past? When I ask myself that question in terms of what has gotten a church community I've been part of through a hard time in the past, I think of my first settled ministry with Bell Street Chapel Unitarian Universalist in Providence, Rhode Island. My first full sermon as their called minister was the Sunday after 9/11. In 2001, I was ordained and installed as their minister a few months later. Now, 9/11 hit us more personally in that region of the country than I imagine up here, at least for more people. One of my congregants was in tears that week as a close friend of hers was on a plane from Boston to New York on 9/11, but fortunately not one of the two that was used as a weapon. Another heard from his brother, who worked in the World Trade Center, one of the top levels. His brother was on the subway headed to work on 9/11, actually on the subway, when he decided he needed a personal day. He got off the subway, got on the other direction, and went home. We were all traumatized. Now, what helped at that time? Some of those things were in-person physical things. We kept the sanctuary doors open for silent meditation or prayer and quiet gatherings. We took part in interfaith prayer services. We became closer to other faith communities than we would have otherwise. We created space for our feelings and mutual support. And then the drumbeat to war started. We protested. We reached out. Ours was the first and only congregation in Rhode Island to vote as a congregation, not just the Social Justice Committee, to vote as a congregation to oppose the Iraq War before it started. We kept a weekly peace vigil downtown and suffered through verbal abuse of drivers going by, as well as those who were supportive. But our best moment might have been this. Along with other faith communities, we held a candlelight peace vigil downtown. I believe it was on a Saturday night. This happened at the same time that a more confrontive, younger secular group was making a very loud protest march downtown. Anna Galland, who was then a recent Brown graduate and the local social justice coordinator for the American Friends Service Committee, and now heads MoveOn.org, she thanked us often for what happened that night. She described it as the marchers who were full of anger, just quietly folded into the candlelight peace vigil. It was perfect and beautiful, and I think it showed exactly what faith communities can do. And naturally, this was featured on the news at that time. Now, after a few years, especially as my congregation was full of social workers helping other people, burnout settled in. Person after person told me that they came to be church to be needing to be fed spiritually, but each person had some sort of church responsibility that meant they had to feed others as well. Perhaps they were greeters who had to keep a smiling face at the door. Perhaps they were on the board of trustees dealing with difficult issues. Perhaps they were in a pastoral care role visiting people. They all struggled because they felt like now they had to be givers and they just felt like they needed to be receivers. And some of you may be feeling like that. So what helped us get through this time was talking about it. The president of my seminary, Starking School for the Ministry, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, often said that religious leadership is noticing and naming. So I preached a sermon by the same name as this one, quite different though. And the main idea is this: we don't have to have it all together to help one another. In fact, it's through the very act of helping one another that we come to feel more whole. We are all part broken, part whole. In many ways, it's the Western medical model that gets in our way. You know, the doctor in the white suit who has all the answers and serve you, the wounded or sick one. In fact, it's every professional model. Therapists who have the answers, financial advisors who have the answers, and aren't supposed to share anything of their experience. Now, there's some use to these professional relationships where we're not quite on the same level, to be sure. But the fact is that healing comes through mutuality. Healing comes from discovering together the hidden wholeness that is alive in each moment when we have the eyes to see and ears to hear, and especially when we find it with others. I find this in my hospice visits. Been doing this work for 8 years, and every year I'm a little more willing to answer questions about my life. And sometimes the most helpful thing I can do in a hospice visit is to offer genuine thanks to the person I'm visiting who may just have months, sharing the things I've learned from them about living well. It's genuine, it's personal, and it's as effective as any other intervention I can think of. Now, earlier, I spoke a little about the challenges and opportunities of our physical separation at this time. We're resolving some of the technical ones, but there's more to this. I like reading David Brooks from the New York Times. And he had a column, the title, the words to the effect, "You may not like who you are about to become." And he pointed out that during many kinds of natural disasters, hurricanes and floods, and so forth, earthquakes, people come together in the wreckage and help one another. Political leaders from further away, especially if their skin color is different, may not, but people come together at crises. However, pandemics are different. They're kind of slow-moving crises, and can easily be in this constant state of fear. If you can get sick and die from touching your neighbor, literally, we come to fear them, and compassion can dwindle. So it's helpful just to notice and name this, and not become somebody we don't want to be, and help one another with that. So again, this time can be a time of hell, like trying to feed yourself with a 6-foot spoon, or it can be a time of heaven where we feed one another, even with 6-foot long spoons. It's a little trickier, but we can do it. We have a lovely hymn in our hymnal, one that I've sung for many of my hospice patients. I'm going to sing part of it for you now. We are, excuse me. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing on. Though the road is steep and rugged, though the road is steep and rugged, though the road is steep and rugged, we are climbing on. If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? We are climbing on. It's a beautiful song, and I'd like to recommend to you if you happen to have it at home, your hymnal. Read the readings, sing the songs. You could be a little off key, I might have been. It doesn't matter. I have found, much to my delight, that even though most people do not know some songs in the Unitarian Universalist Hymnal, that they've been comfort to people at the end of their lives, such as The Lone Wild Bird, number 15. Find what works for you. Find ways of nourishing your soul. Now, I'd like to point out that what makes heaven in that story is not just the fact of everyone being fed, it's also that we all get to feed someone. Helping others feels good. Our sense of self-worth can come in large part from our sense of meaningful contribution. Really, our sense of self-worth comes from meaningful contribution. So how do we feed one another at this time? Now, one easy answer is with our pocketbooks. Something that's been helping for both entertainment and information and contribution I found is watching Trevor Noah's daily distancing show. And each week he has something come up where you can, you have a link where you can give some money to help school children throughout the country, or you can target it to New York City. And we're not getting lunches, hot lunches. There's a lot of unintended consequences coming out of this distancing, and one of those is there are hungry children. Now, I've grappled with this in hospice. I felt down earlier this week, and then what lifted my spirits most of all was one of the adaptations I've been forced to make, and that is visiting with hospice patients through the phone or FaceTime. At first, we couldn't visit with anybody in facilities. It's very hard, and knowing their family members couldn't visit them either. But some people can do this. And I had one patient who was a former school teacher and actually was on a children's television show. I'll call her Miss Nancy. And I got her on FaceTime, and I sang "You Are My Sunshine" to her. She smiled. And then at the time, the activities director who was facilitating us happened to call me back. Happened to be where I could go out to a nice yard, and I showed her pictures of the sky, trees against the sky. We talked about how blue and green maybe really do go together, green trees and the blue sky. Showed her flowers, and she loved all this. And it occurred to me, you know, this is one of the best visits I've ever had with her. And then I decided, as I shared with her frog and toad stories in person, and she liked that, I decided to try telling one out of memory, and I told the story alone, which worked well. I used my partner's former Christmas tree stand in the yard to be the turtle in the story. I had to improvise as I was riding, as Toad was riding the turtle to Frog's Island, and I was standing on the Christmas tree stand. And Toad falls off. I jumped off and nearly fell in some dog poop. That was kind of interesting, but we just folded that into the story. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And Miss Nancy loved it and thanked me. And we connected. And, you know, I felt wonderful after that for a couple of days afterwards. Partly, it was nice to be out in the sun. It was kind of fun to do this. But also, I felt good because I contributed. I found a way of contributing. So I encourage you to find your ways today. Whose life can you brighten today? Really, think about it. Whose life can you brighten today? Now, back to that Jacob's Ladder song I sang for you earlier. As you may know, that comes from a biblical story when Jacob wrestles with an angel, as it's sometimes told, or actually, we believe, biblical scholars, the more accurate translation is Jacob wrestling with God. And in this wrestling match, Jacob's leg is broken, but Jacob manages to pin down the angel or God. I mean, it's kind of an incredible story. A human pins down God and says, I'm not letting go until you give me a blessing. Powerful story. Bible's filled with Powerful stories like this. Now, if it helps you, replace the word God with ultimate reality, or the essence of the situation. And so I invite you to think about how that it's time to face our situation, our ultimate reality, and not let go until we receive a blessing. So we're stuck with social distancing and all these hard things, but we can hold on and insist that we find blessings in this and to be a blessing to others. Now, this is quite a situation we're in, that the immediate dangers of this illness, which is killing people and harming so many more, there's a secondary damage caused by the solution, social distancing, depression and anxiety. If you're experiencing any of those, I really encourage you to reach out. Many people are. And those who have urgent health needs who may receive less attention. Surgeries postponed, pain endured. Illnesses untreated or undertreated because medicines or medical professionals' time were diverted to the one threat everyone is worried about. Children and adults for whom stay home, stay safe is an oxymoron. Do you know how many children are relieved to go to school, not only for the hot meals, but also for the time away from an abusive parent or other household member? Now they're confined at home with that person whose abusive behavior has likely escalated with a situation which can include the loss of a job. So while we're focused on the larger body of humankind and the more immediate communities around us, as we should be, we must acknowledge and address the many single cells and groups of cells, human beings, families, children, the elderly, and many more, who are worse off because of social distancing and our other collective actions to mitigate the harm from this pandemic. The cure is, in fact, much worse than the solution for some. Let us not, in our polarized politics or strong feelings, however justified, about a particular political leader, get in the way of seeing the real dimensions to our situation, including our efforts to mitigate the damage. Let's acknowledge the truth of that statement and see where we can help. This truly is a choice between the lesser of evils for the whole, as best we can tell at this time. The alternative to social distancing includes school closures, including school closures, as rapidly escalating hospitalizations, overrun hospitals, and far more deaths. We know that. But still, what a situation. Unintended consequences abound in many more than we can think of. So let's not turn away from this situation. Let's ease the tension we may be feeling with diversions, absolutely. Silly cat videos. I'll probably watch that one many more times. And this week I was introduced to the Big Bang Theory show. Fantastic. I encourage my sister, Kathy, to watch it because she's a special education teacher and the sister of me and my other brothers. So even though it was a little like watching my brothers and I in action, I love that show. Engage in self-care, absolutely. Deepen our relationships with our loved ones. Can be a great opportunity. Go to the beach, at least you can when it's not crowded. I'll walk in the woods. Read poetry, write poetry, paint, write, so many things. Do it all. And also, I encourage you to find creative ways of feeding others during this time of social distancing. Support those who are on the front lines, medical providers, assisted living and memory care staff, first responders. If you have more than a few masks at home with you, please offer them to a hospice or other people who serve the elderly. Now support those serving the unhoused, domestic violence victims, prisoners, refugees, wherever they may be found. Imagine what it's like to be in a refugee camp at this time. So let us pray. Send them good thoughts. And if you can, write a check. Let someone know that they are not alone. Give them reason to feel safe. Feed them, literally. Support the businesses you would normally be supporting. A friend on Facebook suggested this. The businesses whose doors are closed or left only for takeout, send them the money you would normally be spending there. I've been leaving $20 tips at my favorite takeout place, Anchor Cafe in Eugene, because business is slow and I normally be spending that money for workday lunches at other places where I'm now working and eating from home. When asked, the proprietor said that they can withstand a month of this reduced business, but probably not 2 months. Their landlords refused to reduce their rent during the dine-in restrictions, even though I can't imagine anybody else will be moving in anytime soon if this business was forced to close. I don't know what the landlord was thinking. Now they will get, from the federal government, I presume, some checks like many of us will, and hopefully a business loan. But to get them there, your congregation is paying me for this sermon. So I will be offering this money, $250, to them as a gift or loan from the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and me. And I'll ask them that if we get through this and they're still offering meals, they can repay us, and I invite you to join me, Anchor Cafe in Eugene. I'll let you know about that. After social distancing has been lifted, they can prepare a $250 meal for us if they're ready to pay us back. Otherwise, it's a gift. They'll have to pull tables together. Won't that be wonderful when they'll be pulling tables together again? Let's just hold on to that. Now, as some of you may know, I have a dual religious identity, more than dual, actually, if you count the Buddhist meditation and 5-day Vipassana retreat I once did, and being named honorary Jew in front of 600 people during the High Holy Days when I was working at a temple and volunteering for the High Holy Day Choir. While an ordained UU minister, I am also a member and elder at First Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, a very progressive church in Eugene. Our senior minister, the Reverend Dan Bryant, had planned to retire after 29 years to focus solely on his other job as the executive director of Square One Villages, which has become a model for serving the homeless. Easter was to be his last Sunday, and we were to have his farewell celebration next week. Last Sunday, he brought me to tears as I was watching him, as you are now watching me and your lay leaders, sitting in the comfort of my home. He preached that in a way, Easter may come late this year, and he may or may not be part of the congregation celebration. There will come a day when the tomb is opened and God's light shines forth again. There will be. There will come a day when we are all together again, holding one another's undoubtedly very well washed hands. I think those habits are going to hold on. That day will come when we're holding hands in a circle, and you'll be holding hands in a circle too. And in the meantime, let's take care of ourselves in whatever ways truly work, even if it is silly cat videos or sitcoms, because laughter is healing. But let's especially take care of ourselves by taking care of one another. Let's take care of our loved ones, our neighbors, those who literally feed us, service our cars, clean our homes, sell us all those things we think we need. Let's take care of those marginalized by our society. Let's take care of those who are prohibited by their situation from the luxury of practicing social distancing, such as prisoners. Let's take care of our seniors, others who are medically at risk. Let's take care of our children. Let's take care of those who care for them, senior living staff, senior living managers who are making very hard choices when their staff do not show up for work. This is happening. Let's take care of one another. When the Dalai Lama was asked to summarize what Buddhism means, he said, compassion. This is the heart of Christianity too, and all the other major world religions. And this is the way of Unitarian Universalism. Let's show our respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person by doing everything we can to help others. Let's live our respect for the interdependent web of all creation, of which we are a part, by caring for other people and for animals and for the earth. And who knows, perhaps this will be the crisis that shakes us out of our false dependencies enough to address climate change. There still may be some good, and I'm so glad that you are continuing to support one another. And I thank you for the honor of being with you today.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that so much. I'm sitting here at my kitchen table and I have the luxury of looking outside, and Jennifer just reminded me that a deer walked by a few moments ago. So that's my joy for the day, as well as a cat just walked by and is torturing our indoor cats. So yeah, there's benefits to being stuck at home. You just have to look for it. I'm also reminded of your words are very powerful on who we need to honor and remember. I'm thinking of our mail carrier. You know, mail carriers are even at risk at this point, and wondering if they should continue delivering our mail, which is a very basic need for so many of us. I'm thinking of Food Share, Florence Food Share. I know they may have extra cash to buy the goods that they need, but they also need to keep running, and they still need food on the shelves to help those people. So that's one of our community partners for the month of March and April. So if you're listening to this and you care about the folks who might not have food for their table, I invite you to visit Food Share and drop off some food from your pantry, and or cash or a check would certainly be appreciated. So that's what we can do in our own community. And I thank you, Reverend Landale, for supporting your endeavor in your community. Very much appreciated. Very much. Thank you. And for others who are interested in how to keep this particular fellowship going strong, and we are strong, we're not in dire need of cash, that's not a problem, but we also know that people gain something from their spiritual practice of giving, that commitment to keep giving. Jennifer just handed me our pledge check for the month, or for this 2-week period. And I invite anyone who is listening, if you have a contribution you'd like to make to our fellowship, or your pledge payment of support, you can do that by visiting our website, and there's a donate button that you can pay through your PayPal account or through credit card. You certainly can mail us a check to P.O. Box 2502 in Florence. So having said all of that, I thank you again, Stephen Landale, for being with us this morning. So before our service draws to an end with the extinguishing of the chalice, and as Jennifer makes her way around the kitchen table, past the deer and the cats, I offer thanks to everyone who volunteered to make today's service special. Catherine Hemmond, thank you. Darlene, Jeff, Ray, Jennifer, and especially Reverend Stephen Landale. We look forward to seeing you again very soon, and safe travels wherever you go. So the extinguishing of the chalice is by Becky Laurent, and it goes like this. As flame is to spirit, so spirit is to breath, and breath to song. Though we extinguish the flame in this home, our sanctuary, may we tend it in our hearts until we meet again. Blessed be. So Jeff is going to play us out with the peace song. Again, if you're on mute, or if you want to unmute and, you know, sing along, go for it. I'm going to go on mute, but I'm going to sing it anyway. Okay? So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Take care, everyone. Hope to see you very soon in person or virtually. Until then, and from our hearts to yours, remember to practice wellness, beginning with self-love. Peace.